What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. So guys, today I want to talk about an orological underdog by the name of Eterna. And that's right, Eterna is kind of glossed over when we're looking at the archives of orology, and it's such a huge bummer because Eterna specifically is so orologically significant. It's just incredible what they have done for watchmaking. Now, for those of us who know anything about vintage watches, I think a lot of us kind of look at Eterna as just a movement producer. And you're not totally wrong. We're going to talk about that today in a moment. But for those of you out there who think they don't know anything, they don't have any experience at all with Eterna's products, you might have a little bit more experience than you think, because Eterna actually founded ETA, one of the largest, if not the largest, Swiss manufacturer of watch movements ever. So you're welcome, Swatch Group. It all started here. It is 3:10 p.m. Let's get down to business. Now guys, when we do these blast from the past episodes, when we're talking about these old school watchmakers, they're either from Europe or Asia, and I'm most likely going to butcher their names by accident because I'm just an ignorant American, so I apologize in advance. Moving on to some people's European names. In 1856, the Dr. Gerard and Schild Ebausch factory was founded, and an Ebausch factory is essentially a place where they mass produce unfinished clock movements or watch movements. And guys, they were producing these movements for various watchmakers outside of Gretchen, Switzerland. And because of this huge orological boom that was going on in Switzerland at the time, you can imagine it's not like the Dr. Gerard and Schild company was, at any shortage of work. They had a ton of clientele. But it wasn't until Mr. Schild passed away and actually left the business to his sons that things really started scaling upwards. Now, initially it was just Max Schild who took over the business, and he actually went to the US trying to bring part of the factory to the US around 1888. But he didn't receive the response he wanted, and it probably wasn't the best experience for him because he just decided to walk away from the business altogether and just throw it in his brother's lap. That's right. So at this point, Theodor Schild took over the business, and this was probably the best move the company could have ever made. You see, Theodor Schild actually recognized the budding popularity of the wrist-worn timepiece, and much like other watchmakers we've covered, they wanted to be the first to try to manipulate these pocket watches into something you could actually wear on the wrist. So they started modifying female watches and putting straps on them and seeing if guys wanted to wear them. Now, they were selling these watches under the name Schild Frère, and I probably butchered that, but I'm trying, guys. At this point, half a decade went by. He was doing these Schild Frère wristwatches, and things were going good. So good, in fact, he wanted to make a specific business for these new wrist-worn timepieces, and Eterna was officially born right around 1905. But I get it. From this point, when we're looking at Eterna's entire history, it's just an Ebausch factory that kind of went on to produce wristwatches. What's the big deal? Everyone eventually tried to make wristwatches, right? But let's go ahead and take a look at some of their orological accomplishments. In 1908, they produced the first mechanical wristwatch with an alarm complication. In 1914, that wristwatch went into official production. Now, this one's my favorite. In 1930, Eterna produced the smallest baguette movement. It was an 8-day alarm complication. Really, really impressive, especially for the time, but even when you look at it nowadays, kind of insane. But this next bullet point is probably the most important for watchmaking as a whole. In 1932, Eterna was scaling upwards so quickly that they needed to create a subsidiary to help them produce movements for in-house use and for other watchmakers, ETA SA. And again, all these years later, 2021, we know just how huge of a business ETA is. I mean, Swatch Group now owns them. And being a vintage watch collector myself, this one's huge. In 1938, Eterna came out with their first automatic movement, which led the way to the 1948 revealing of the Eterna-Matic series, which is huge for us vintage watch collectors because the Eterna-Matics specifically utilized 5 ball bearings within the movement movements to mitigate friction, and that's why the Eternamatics have that little 5 ball bearing logo. It looks almost like a star over by the 12 o'clock, and yeah, most people don't even know that that directly correlates to things inside of the movement. It's very cool how tastefully they kind of did that. It's this really cool logo kind of raised off the dial, but it pertains to actual components within the automatic movements. I think that's really cool. But the innovations didn't stop there. Eterna, again, incredibly innovative. We already said they came out with the first mechanical alarm complication watch. They came out with the smallest baguette movement 8-day alarm complication. Also, in 1962, they came out with the thinnest automatic watch utilizing a date complication. This is known as the very prolific Eternamatic 3000 Dato, and the movement height is only 3.6 millimeters thin. That is ridiculous. Now, in 1982, Eterna started getting passed around to various owners, and around that time, I think it was 1999, Eterna actually was making watches for Porsche design. And there's been a few different watchmakers making watches for Porsche design. I know IWC was another big one. And now we're kind of getting into the modern history. So in 2006, Eterna produced the Caliber 3030. It's one of the thinner automatic movements you can find. In 2009, Eterna releases the Spherodrive, which again utilizes these ball bearings within the movement to mitigate friction. So they're kind of harkening back to the early Eternamatic. And that's all well and good. But nowadays, what is Eterna doing? Well, believe it or not, their logo still is the 5 ball bearing star, but some of their watches use Solitas. There, I'm just gonna say. It's weird. Some of their watches do use in-house Eterna calibers. They have some dive watches like the Kontiki Bronze Diver 44. Actually looks pretty cool. I'd love to get one in for review, but it uses the Caliber Maison Eterna EMC 3902A, has a power reserve of 65 hours, 28,800 BPH, 30 joules with only 1 ball bearing inside. So this does not utilize the 5 ball bearings, but they're still, you know, trying to keep up with their history. So that's cool. But then there's another diver here that uses a Solita movement. So you've got to assume that this Kontiki with the in-house movement is probably more expensive, although you can't find pricing on their website. But yeah, if you're going to buy a modern Eterna, probably get the one with the in-house movement, right? Now, I'm not gonna say I love every single watch that I can find on Eterna's website, but what I will say is I am so happy they didn't go the way of like Wittenauer and Waltham and some of these old watchmakers that are since, you know, essentially defunct. You know, people have purchased the Wittenauer name, but if you find a Wittenauer, it's nothing like the Wittenauers of that we love. You know, this seems to be kind of a common trend where various holding groups kind of just poach an old defunct watchmaker, and then they start making disgusting fashion watches using this once coveted name. You know, I'm just sick of that happening. So upon doing further research on Eterna's website, it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air to see them making watches that aren't totally disgusting. They have some kind of heritage cushion case divers. This has an ETA 28242, which again totally correlates to Eterna's history because Eterna founded ETA. And then we have a few here. The 1948 for him, the 1948 automatic 40 is what it's called. They have kind of a cream dial and a silver sunburst dial. That's more harkening back to their older school Eternamatics, which are very, very fun. Most of these, I'm very happy to say, are in fact automatics. But again, there's one that I was able to find, at least one, that utilizes a Solita, which is weird. But they do have also ETA quartz variants, like this Lady Kontiki 36 millimeter. So yeah, I guess you have some options there. Oh, and I just found one with a Ronda movement. So at least all of these are still using Swiss movements, at least the ones I could find. But you know what? I want you guys to comment. Number one, commenting helps the algorithm with all my videos. But if any of you have any experience with these modern Eternas, let me know, because I actually have never seen one of these modern ones in person, and I don't know anyone who owns one. So if you have one, please chime in the comment section. Maybe we can talk to each other there, and maybe I'll send you an email because I want to get my hands on one. But guys, if you learned something during this episode and you enjoyed yourself, again, chime in the comment section. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But we do all of these kind of blast from the past episodes in this playlist here, episodes for new collectors, and we go over the history of, let's see, we did one for Timex, Waltham, Wittenauer, Elgin, a bunch of these old school watchmakers that I grew up absolutely loving, and I still love them. I mean, heck, I'm a vintage watch collector. But if you want to learn about them, you want to brush up on some research, go ahead, click up there and check out that playlist. So guys, I love doing research for these various defunct watchmakers. If there's a watchmaker you want me to cover in one of these episodes, please leave it in the comment section below. I know some people have asked about Lamagna. That's actually another really orologically significant watchmaker. And some people have asked for more episodes on the quartz crisis. I've done a few already, but the quartz crisis is a fun kind of retro your robotic time. So I wouldn't mind doing another episode on the quartz crisis, but chime in the comment section, let me know what you'd like to see, and I'm gonna do it for you. All right guys, well, there's a bunch of ways to support the channel. Keep watching the content. Check out all the affiliate links in the description below. Check out my personal website, www.thetimetellershop.com, where we have an Eterna-matic. Wow, what a coincidence. We have a very cool Eterna-matic, kind of a pseudo cushion case on a Spidell stretch bracelet. Really old school, super comfortable on the wrist, lays incredibly flat, and it has a date complication. Check it out, and I'd love to see one of you guys pick it up. All right, guys, stay happy, stay healthy, stay blessed. I will see you on the next one. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time, I just tell it.